Yeah, because she told us he was good. Council meeting of Monday, August 17th, 2020 is called to order. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Lord, please give us the wisdom, the knowledge to defeat this latest scourge upon the human race, and also pray for our president of council and his illness at this point. And lastly, God help me, provide it with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Swank. Here. Booz.
Here.
Havens.
Here.
Winkle.
Here.
Hung. Here. Molesky.
Here.
DeVries is excused. Mayor.
Here.
Service Director.
Here.
Law Director.
Here.
Engineer.
Here.
Auditor. Here. Clerk of Council here.
Okay. I'm going to assume everyone has had a chance to review the city council meetings of August 3, 2020. Are there any additions, amendments? Seeing none, so moved. Planning Commission meetings. Oh, I'm sorry.
You could pick it up and move it if you need to.
Planning Commission meetings of August 11th, 2020 are also online. This brings us to the lobby session. Is there anybody waiting?
At this point, no.
Okay, we'll wait 30 seconds. Any responses?
Not at this point.
Okay. You will see before you time for the mayor for his report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to start off with free COVID-19 community testing. Avon Lake will be hosting a free pop-up COVID-19 community testing event in partnership with the Lorain County Public Health Department and the Ohio National Guard medics on Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and on Thursday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Avon Lake Aquatic Center on Electric Boulevard. Testing is for people ages 2 and older. Please wear a face covering when you drive through or walk up to get tested for COVID-19. In order to get tested, you will not need symptoms, a doctor's order, an appointment, a medical or insurance card, or an identification card. Pretty much, if you want to get tested, just show up. It'll take about 3 days to get COVID-19 test results from these events. The Lorain County Public Health Department will follow up with all those positive tests from people who reside in Lorain County, as they do with all local positive tests. Anyone who tests positives that lives outside of Lorain County will get contacted by their local health department. This is a PCR test, which is not an antigen test, which will tell people if they have COVID-19 at the time of the test. This is not an antibody test, so the results won't tell you if you've had COVID-19 in the past. Testing for COVID-19 is critical to help stopping the spread of the virus. When we're able to test more individuals in a community, it allows us to quickly identify infected individuals and isolate them. And that way it helps us contain and decrease the spread of illness so we can go on the offense against this virus. Moving on to street paving, our street department's currently paving on Rood Road. If you've noticed, they've completed the milling, but they have some base work and top coat still to do. And that's between Bainbridge and Chestnut Ridge. For the most up-to-date information, please visit our city's website. Tomorrow morning, Tuesday, August 18th, from 8 to 9 a.m., I'll be having my monthly coffee and conversation virtually. It'll be done through Zoom, and if you're interested in joining that conversation, please visit the city's website for details. Victory Sports Park, Ohio will be hosting Field Day and fireworks on September 6th, which is a Sunday, the Sunday of Labor Day. The city is co-sponsoring the fireworks display at this event. Tickets are available for purchase online only and will not be sold at the gate. All net proceeds from the event will benefit North Ridgeville Community Care. For more information, visit the city's website. And because this will be a long stretch before we meet again, City Hall offices will be closed on Monday, September 7th in observance of Labor Day. Our next City Council meeting will be held therefore on Tuesday, September 8th as a result of the holiday. And at this point, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn into executive session in place of the recess for the reason of discussing acquisition of property.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Those opposed?
We need a roll call vote.
Do we need the roll call?
We do.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Swank,
Yes.
Booz,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Khan, yes, Molesky,
Yes. That concludes my report. Thank you.
And the motion that passes. Mr. Safety Service Director?
Yes, over the past several years, the service department has been placing our 4 digital speed signs that we have that are mobile in several of the streets in the city of North Ridgeville. The administrative office and the police department, when we receive calls or service garage receives a call, we try to we do put on those streets on that list to move the digital sign around. The data that we pick up is reported and logged by the police department, so we have an idea of what is going on there with those streets. The number of requests we've had this year, I wish we had probably about 10 more signs. Unfortunately, as the sign is sitting there for a week or so, everybody gets used to it. They just speed up and go by. So we add a policeman in someone's driveway to let them know that we're serious about that. But unfortunately there too, everybody knows that policeman's there, so they slow down. So my request to all drivers of North Ridgeville is, just be aware of what's about. The schools are not in the same condition that they're in great condition, but the kids are out. They're gonna not be in school all the time this fall. They probably will be hopefully inside studying and distance learning, but some of them probably will be out playing, so be careful. Any resident out there can obtain from our office, the mayor's office, a watch your speed sign that they can place in their yard. And there's no cost to the resident if they would like to do that, and they do not have to be returned. That concludes my report this evening.
Mr. Safety Service Director, Mr. Engineer?
Thank you, Council President. Just wanted to give a couple of updates. Our 2020 full depth work on concrete replacement for MacArthur and Northwood has started. Residents should have seen some work getting started there, some saw cutting and possibly removal. Contract A of our OPWC Round 33 project, which includes Rock Point Circle and some work on Gatestone Circle, full depth concrete repairs, was awarded to DL Smith of Norwalk, and that work should be getting started in the next couple of weeks as well. Currently, we have out our OPWC Round 33 Contract B, which includes Main and Pleasant repairs on those 2 streets and different areas of those 2 streets. There's a couple of different sections. That's out to bid right now. Those should be opening in the next couple of weeks. Also, we have traffic striping, our paint bid out for this year. Hopefully that comes back within the next week, I believe it is, and we get that opened up, and then we get our striping throughout the city refreshed. And also Ranger Way should be finishing up. They did their last concrete pour today out on Bainbridge, some curb work. and are doing some topsoiling and getting that ready. So that should be opened up here pretty soon. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Ms. Auditor?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to mention that there are two pieces of legislation before council tonight. T95, which is the amendment of the 2020 appropriations. As part of that, there's additional funding needed in the general fund to cover outstanding invoices owed to GLW IT Broadband. They were the vendor performing the 2019 telephone upgrade project. The invoices are from 2019. However, that PO has been closed, removing the encumbrance. So there's additional appropriation that is going to be needed to cover those invoices. In addition to that, in the special revenue fund, there is additional appropriation needed for clothing and associated expenses for the fire department. These costs were not factored in during the 2020 appropriation process. So those additional funds are needed also. I did want to highlight that there's a correlation between T95 and the second piece of legislation, which is T96, the then and now resolution. On the Exhibit A, you'll see that GLW IT Broadband is on there as well. Because there's no purchase order in place, that those invoices have not been paid. We need the appropriation first before we can encumber the funds and create the purchase order. In addition to that, on the then and now resolution, there is also an invoice for Jackson Deacon, who is the city's property and casualty insurance agent. This is the 2020 renewal. This invoice has also not been paid. So in order to get that invoice paid, we need the emergency on that then and now. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Other reports are July 2020 Building Department report and the July 2020 Fire Department report. I'm going to divert a little bit under new business. And we did receive communications from our auditor pertaining to our upcoming meetings for appropriations. And I'm gonna ask our auditor to explain how she would like to proceed with that and then get some feedback from council.
Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to talk to the Finance Committee in regard to an idea I had for the upcoming 2021 appropriation process. And one of the things that I think would be extremely helpful is if the auditor's office could create a binder in advance of all of our meetings to provide to council that will include all of the information that has routinely been provided to council in the past. But we would provide that binder to council in advance and then move forward with a Finance Committee meeting that would take place to include the committee, council members, as well as the administration to review the binder, go through questions and just a broad overview before we get the department heads included. And then we would go on to our 2-day session, which typically it's a 3-day session, but we'll go on to a 2-day session in which the department heads will make their presentations to council. We will review, instead of doing what we've done in the past with a line by line review, department heads would have the opportunity to tell you, what their business is, give you an idea of what they've accomplished in 2020, as well as what they're looking forward to achieve with their budget in 2021. We would do that on one full day, and then the next following day, spend time going through any questions and concerns and kind of a wrap-up session. That's the idea that has been thrown out to council. There are some preliminary dates that we spoke about, which would be Veterans Day. We would meet from around 1:30 and meet for about 4 or 5 hours to review the binder, and then meet on November 18th and 19th for 2 full days.
Thank you. Any comments at this point from council?
President,
Yes,
I spoke with the auditor and agree with their summation. One, I think it sounds like it would be a more efficient process. We certainly can then look at the binders ourselves and look at the line by line items so that we don't have to discuss them in a meeting and slow down that process. Or spend time on that when we could be spending time on some more important, larger issues by each department. It also might mean that not every department head needs to be brought before the finance committee if there are no major changes within their budgets from previous years. But I also ask that I do not want to deny any department head who would like to speak for the finance group. So no, I think it's a very efficient process, and I would look forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Council Clerk, would you please read Planning Commission actions?
Planning Commission actions taken on the August 11th, 2020 meeting. Applicant Ryan Schultheis, Development and Construction, 36097 Westminster Avenue, North Ridgeville, Ohio, 44039. Owner Rick Development and Construction, 36097 Westminster Avenue, North Ridgeville, Ohio, 44039. Request final plat approval for Harvest Point Subdivision Phase 2, location east side of Root Road and south side of Lorraine Road, parcel number 07-00-011-103-189, PC action approval by a vote of 4-0.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
I make motion to approve.
Second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The action is approved. And at this point, we will go into executive session. Okay, the council meeting of on Monday, August 17, 2020 is back in session. Council Clerk, would you please read the first reading?
T95-2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5690-2019 of the North Ridgeville, Ohio, providing appropriations for the period commencing January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Booth.
make second, third readings.
Is there a second? I'll second it. The motion has been moved by Councilman Booth. I believe we have to amend or waive the second and third. Move that we suspend the second and third readings for efficiency.
Mr. President. I did. That was Mr.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry.
I just did. Can you second?
Can I ask you guys to stand by one moment, please?
We have to do that again.
Yes, please.
Council Clerk, please reread T95.
T95-2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5690-2019 of the city of North Ridgeville, Ohio, providing appropriations for the period commencing January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Booth.
I'll make a motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
I'll second that. The motion is on the floor for waiving second and third. I believe the voice vote is okay on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Mr. President, I make a motion to add the emergency as these funds need to be appropriated before they can be spent.
Second.
Councilman Booth has made the motion with Councilwoman Hone seconding the emergency and the adoption on the emergency clause. Again, we can do a voice vote on this emergency. Yes. All those in favor of the emergency clause, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Measure passes
That was on the emergency, so
on emergency only.
now you need to vote for the adoption.
And now we'll vote for adoption. Council Clerk, please call the roll. Are there any comments or issues before we begin? Seeing none?
Swain,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Hung,
Yes.
Molesky.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously and becomes 5762-2020.
E96?
T96-2020, a resolution to authorize the execution of then and now certificates by the fiscal officer and the payment of amount due for various purchase orders.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Booth.
I make a motion to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second. Motion has been moved by Councilman Booth, seconded by Councilman Molesky. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Those opposed?
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, I make a motion to add the emergency as these items have already had their services completed and these items need to be paid.
Second. Emergency measure, seconded, moved by Councilman Booth, seconded by Molesky. On the emergency clause only. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Those opposed? On the resolution itself. Any comments, further questions?
Mr. President. Yes, I just had a question on this GLW IT broadband for the auditor. Once we get this bill caught up and paid for the $15,160, are we current with them in 2020?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, we are.
Just to add, can I ask? So that's through like June or July or?
The most recent bill I believe we paid is June. I don't believe we've satisfied July yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further comment, questions? Council Clerk, please call the roll.
Swank,
No.
Booth,
Yes.
Avens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Molesky.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1 and becomes resolution 1498, 2020.
Second readings. On T77, 2020. Motion to amend by way of substitution.
First, the clerk read T77.
Clerk, would you please read T77?
T77, 2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number. Do I read this one or what's on here?
On the agenda,
What's on the agenda?
the existing one.
The existing one on your iPad.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 272593 and subsequent amendments thereto in order to eliminate the wage increase parity provision for all non-union members.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Booth.
I make a motion to amend T77 2020 by way of substitution.
Second.
Measure has been motioned by Councilman Booth, seconded by Councilwoman Swank. All those in favor? Say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The substitution. Now, I believe we have to read the substitution.
We do, yes, because this is different from the normal process. We are now going to discuss the amended version of T77. So at this point, the clerk could read the amended version of
T77, 2020 amended, an ordinance temporarily suspending the wage parity provision contained in various ordinances.
So, Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
we've been discussing the parity clauses in various ordinances, and it has gotten a little messy because of how many there are. And it seems as more time goes by, we find another one that happens to be drifting out there somewhere in the wind. So the idea of this substitution is to kind of pull everything together and put it in one spot, make it easier for everybody to follow. And as you can see, all the different ordinances are listed there that we have discovered from at this point and that have been discussed in the T84, 86, 87, and 88 ordinances that are on second readings right now. And in those ordinances, one of the things that we had discussed was the permanent removal of the parity clause. But at this time, in this amended version of T77, I'm just asking for the parity provision to be temporarily suspended for this calendar year from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And if you remember, there is a union contract that's out there still, and this parity clause was attempting to eliminate any issues with any increases in wages that might put us in further debt. We're still in a deficit situation for this year. I had mentioned to the department heads a couple of weeks ago that things are moving in the right direction, but we're still in a hole. And that hole's still kind of deep. Just the hole has gotten shallower. But it's not. We're still in the hole. So so the idea was, we're trying to make that prevent that hole from getting deeper. So that's what this ordinance was. That's what our discussions were on all the individual ordinances over the last couple of weeks, if not month. And this pulls it all together. And if this is going to move forward, then we'll make a motion to strike the others. And technically, I guess we should wait until next meeting because we want to make sure that this ordinance gets adopted. The new amended T77 before we strike the others. If we strike them now and they don't pass the amended version of T77, then we're in a spot. Well, I didn't want to throw this because I threw this out as an email at the last minute and I didn't want to force anybody to vote on this as an emergency clause tonight. So my thought is we just let this go this meeting and it's second reading. Next time when we come back for third readings, if this passes, then there'll be a motion to strike the other individual ones that follow. I'm just thinking out loud as I'm going through this right now.
Now, a question I would have on this T77, will this cover any other ordinances that may float to the top?
As a matter of fact, it will, because in section 2, it says that this is covering the wage parity provision contained in the listed section 1, but it also says, and any other is not mentioned, but contain a wage parity provision. Just in case, we're covering all our bases this time.
I quite frankly, I would suggest that we make a third reading out of it, as well as the other ones, and then strike the other ones at the next meeting, hopefully after T77 passes.
Sounds reasonable to me. You can discuss it right now.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilwoman Hunt.
this came to us today, and you and Councilmember Abrams and Booth suggested a finance committee meeting to happen, to be scheduled on April 6th, and the meeting we had here April 6th, to discuss the city's finances in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also, it was mentioned on May 4th by Council President DeVries, and he stated that council has concerns and hopes council can sit down and take a closer look at the city finances. And then I know that you were, Councilmember Evans, yourself, were talking about calling a meeting at one time that then got canceled. So are we, the mayor talks about the hole getting shallower. Are we going to have a finance meeting to kind of discuss all of that, to figure out exactly where we're at?
At this point, unfortunately, we still don't have final numbers or anything close to final numbers as far as our anticipated revenues. So any such meeting would not be effective whatsoever.
Mr. President, a couple of weeks ago when I mentioned that I spoke to the department heads, we were at that time about $800,000 in the hole. We are probably closer to 700,000 right now in the hole. But the reason why we're improving was because the money from the taxes that were filed on July 15th is the reason why the hole is getting filled in. That money doesn't just keep coming. It stops at some point. It slows down. And so I don't know how much further we'll go to cover that $700,000 gap. We've remained flexible in all of the planning and thinking that we've had, and we didn't want to make any harsh decisions or overreactions. If we had met originally when it was suggested, and at that time, we had suggested that we were going to wind up being $1 million addition to our increase in our budget that we had planned for of another like 300,000, we at that point would have been about 1.4 in the hole. And that conversation would have been completely different than the one that we would have today if we had one. I can't tell you right now because we don't really have good direction, you know, from Rita as to where we're going to end up. And so, you know, right now I'm still comfortable holding on without making any kind of harsh decisions, and seeing where we continue to go. You know, we made some original decisions back, you know, at the beginning of all this to ask the department heads to cut their budgets, and they came up with about $600,000 in cuts. So we're getting close to, you know, our break-even point, but that's only, we're talking about 2019 dollars. We're not talking about 2020 dollars. We're basing everything off of what we think or received in 2019. So that's where, you know, again, we can have meetings. I don't have a clear direction to tell you where we're going to go from here. I don't know how much further we're going to go. We're just looking at it day by day and week by week at this point.
From what I can gather from what you're saying, it still would be guesswork in a meeting at this point.
It is, and that's quite frankly what makes it challenging for next year as well, because, you know, we knew that the tax collections from this year were based off of what people earned in 2019, and we figured that 2019 was a good year for people, so tax collections should be good, but that's strictly on the individual side. The other side that we get, which is more real-time information, is withholding dollars from employers and then net profit taxes. Those are real numbers for this current year. So there's a blend of old information, new information that gets blended into the money that we receive on the income tax side of things. The trick is next year, you know, we're assuming because things were closed for a couple of months that people are going to make less than they did in 2019. And so we have to take that into account when we're doing our budget. But that's a whole nother conversation. And quite frankly, right now with Rita's projections, I would argue that the number that they gave us originally, you know, that was not as accurate as we had hoped.
We would have made some decisions, pardon my interruption, we would have made some decisions that were based upon inaccurate numbers that were too high.
Right. And over the course of the weeks after that information was communicated from Rita, things got a lot worse. And we just held to our guns and figured that once the tax filing started in July, you know, that things would start to turn around. But we weren't 100% sure of that. And it was quite a bit of nerve-wracking moments there that we went through. Anyway, that's a finance meeting right there.
We certainly got a lot of information there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I just want to add that I'm happy to see that there's a term or a cap on this. It's not open-ended. It gives us the opportunity to discuss this at the beginning of the year, again, and revisit it. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, well then we're going to wait on T77 until the next meeting. But we still need to read T84.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to T77 2020 by way of substitution.
Second.
Mr. President, point of order, you have to dispense with the third reading first.
Approving the amendment, not the.
You already did.
Yeah, Mr. Booth actually passed the motion to suspend or to amend by substitution.
So we already did.
Current T77 with this one, which actually happened. But now, what we just did was read T77, the new version. Now it's technically gone through its second reading. And so next time it'll be the third reading of the amended version. Sorry. This one's a little different from the way we normally amend by substitution.
Getting through it.
Listen to law director.
Just lean, Brian.
That's okay.
Council clerk, please read T84. You still have to read it.
Yes, I did.
We're not going to eliminate it.
T 84, 2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5596, 2018 by eliminating the wage increase parity provision for all non-union members.
T86.
T 86, 2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5684, 2019 by eliminating the wage increase parity provision for the position of treasurer.
T87.
T 87, 2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5485, 2017 by eliminating the wage increase parity provision for the position of Parks and Recreation Director.
T88.
T 88, 2020, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5477, 2017 by eliminating the wage parity provision for the position of city engineer.
There are no third readings. Meeting announcement. The next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. in the city council chamber. This meeting is adjourned.